Hey, welcome back. My name is Vanessa. I have a master's in nutritional science. I love talking about all things food. And in this video, we're going to talk about the zero sugar or sugar-free claim made in a lot of our foods. We're going to talk about why, even though a food claims to have no sugar and you eat it or drink it, it still tastes sweet. Here's a bombshell, guys. It still has a type of sweetener. It still has a type of sugar. So in this video, I'm going to show you how you can spot the type of sweetener. Because here's the thing. Many of us are buying things at the grocery store and we don't know exactly what we are putting into our body. Before we get started and review a couple of foods that I've selected for us to go over, there are two things that I think are so important for you to know. The first one is that the way that these foods are able to get away with claiming to be zero in sugar but still contain a type of sugar or a type of sweetener is because the FDA decides what ingredients qualify as a sugar. And if an ingredient qualifies as a sugar, it must be accounted for under the nutrition label, specifically under the total sugar or sugar added category of the nutrition label. But if the manufacturer is adding in a sugar that is not considered to be sugar by the FDA, they don't need to list the amount under the total sugar or added sugar section of our nutrition labels. So, what is the FDA considered to be a sugar? Well, they have a technical definition. The FDA, which is the Food and Drug Administration, considers sugar to be any ingredient composed of monosaccharides or disaccharides, which are basically just sugar molecules. So you're probably familiar with fructose. Fructose is a sugar found in fruit. It's a natural sugar. Fructose is a sugar molecule. You've probably also heard of lactose. Lactose is a disaccharide. It's a sugar found in milk. It's made up of two sugar molecules. So this is a very technical definition. But just to give you guys a list, the FDA considers ingredients like honey, molasses, coconut sugar, cane sugar, high fructose corn syrup, rice syrup, dextrose, dextrin, maltodextrin. All of these ingredients are considered to be sugar by the FDA because they are made up of sugar molecules. Therefore, if a food manufacturer uses any of these sugars or sweeteners, they need to, 1, list them under the ingredient list, and 2, they must specify how many grams of the sugar was used, and they must put this information in the nutrition label under total sugars or added sugar. Now, here is the catch. If a sugar or sweetener is not considered to be actual sugar, be made up of these sugar molecules, by the FDA, these sugars do not need to be listed under the nutrition label. So they don't need to let us know how much sugar they are using. Now, here's the thing. If the manufacturer is using a sweetener like an artificial sweetener, a sugar alcohol, stevia, monk fruit, allulose, all of these sweeteners are not considered to be actual sugar by the FDA. So what that means is that you can be purchasing a juice or a coffee or some cookies labeled as zero sugar. You will check the nutrition label and it will say zero sugar in the total sugar and added sugar portion of the label. But when you eat the product, it's still sweet. Well, that's probably because they're using one of these sugars or sweeteners. But the good news for us is that these food manufacturers are required to list the ingredient under the ingredient list. So that is where you're going to find it. Okay, so now let's jump into a couple of examples so you get a visual of what in the world I am talking about. So the first food that we're going to look at is Smuckers. This is a sugar-free Smuckers. You see here in the packaging, this is what I'm talking about, right? Most of us just look at the packaging and we're satisfied with that and we move on with our life. But if you really want to know what you are putting into your body, you have to get used to looking at two things: the nutrition fact panel, but that's often not enough. That only tells us like 50% of the story. You also have to get used to looking at the ingredient list. Okay, So just looking at the packaging, we know that this is Smucker's, a jelly. It's sugar-free. So already I know, and you probably might feel like this too, you expect that when you look at the label, it should say 0 sugar. And it does. Look, total sugar, 0 grams, and added sugar, 0 grams. Okay. Now let's say you buy it and you taste it and it's sweet. So then what kind of sweetener is added into this product? We'll look at the ingredient list. When you look at the ingredient list, you're going to see sucralose. And in parentheses, it does say non-nutritive sweetener. So sucralose is an artificial sweetener. Sucralose is the chemical name for Splenda. So artificial sweeteners aren't considered to be sugar by the FDA. They have 0 calories. They don't even really get absorbed. They don't increase blood sugar. So because they're not considered to be sugar, the food manufacturer can add them into our food products, but they don't have to put anything under the label in terms of the total sugar and the added sugar because it's not actual sugar. But the point of me bringing this up is for you to know, even though you're purchasing a food product that says it has 0 sugar or it's sugar-free, and it still tastes sweet, it has a type of sweetener. In this case, it has an artificial sweetener. Now, you may or may not be trying to avoid artificial sweeteners, but at least you would know how to spot them just in case you're trying to avoid them. Now, one thing to point out about artificial sweeteners is that artificial sweeteners, you probably know them by their brand name. So Equal, Splenda, Sweet and Low. Artificial sweeteners, when they are used in our food products, rarely are they going to be listed by the brand name. They're typically listed by their chemical name. So Equal is a brand name for aspartame. Splenda is a brand name for sucralose. Sweet and Low is a brand name for saccharin. And then Sweet One or Sunnit is a brand name for asulfame potassium, which is another very common artificial sweetener used in our food products. Okay, so that's pretty much how you spot them. You have to look at the ingredient list to see what kind of sweetener is being used. Okay, so let's move on to the next example. So in this example, we're going to go over 0 sugar honey substitute. Now, again, let's look at the marketing. 0 sugar honey substitute. So if you are somebody, again, who's trying to avoid sugar for whatever, personal reason, this might be something that attracts you. Okay, cool. It looks pretty good in the marketing piece. Now, let's look to see what kind of sweetener, if any, does it have. Now, when you look at the nutrition fact panel, you see that it has 0 added sugar, 0 total sugar, which is 100% what we expected because this food product is claiming to have 0 sugar. So a food product, just so you guys know, there's rules set by the FDA. Foods cannot just go crazy and market whatever they want. There are rules at play. So if a food product says it has 0 sugar or no sugar or sugar-free, it literally cannot have any sugar listed in the total sugar or added sugar portion, which means it cannot use an ingredient that the FDA considers to be sugar. Then you can 100% bet if it tastes sweet, but no sugars are listed under the nutrition fact panel, it has some other type of sweetener. So look at the ingredient list. When we look at this ingredient list, you're going to find that it has monk fruit and allulose. So monk fruit is also a sweetener that's not considered to be sugar by the FDA. Monk fruit gets its sweetness from moghrosides. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, but it's not getting its sweetness from the sugar molecules. Therefore, the FDA says, okay, monk fruit does not fall under the sugar category. Now, when you look at this product, you're also going to see allulose. So allulose is a very interesting type of sweetener. It's kind of a new sweetener in the market. So allulose is found naturally in many fruits like figs and raisins. It's found in wheat. It's also found in maple syrup. And allulose has less calories per gram. So a gram of sugar has 4 calories. A gram of allulose has half a calorie. Because of this, and because allulose does not really seem to be absorbed into our system, and it doesn't seem to increase blood sugar, the FDA actually decided, they set a rule that allulose, if it is used in a food product, the manufacturer doesn't have to list the amount of allulose under the total sugar or added sugar section. This is why you can see allulose be used as an ingredient, but it's not going to be under the total sugar or added sugar. But you probably will see it listed on the label like you see here. It says allulose because per the FDA, which the FDA, those are like federal rules set for these food companies. So per the FDA, allulose does need to be accounted for under the total carbohydrate amount and under the calorie amount. So that's why this might look a little bit funky to you, but that's why you see allulose there. It is a sweetener. It is a type of sugar, but the FDA, because of the things that I mentioned, kind of exempts food manufacturers from having to put the 10 grams under the total sugar or added sugar amount, which is interesting. I think based on right now the small amount of research that I've done or what I've read, allulose is new to the market, so we really don't know, what effect it really has. But either way, that's not the point of this video. The point of this video is just to help you spot these type of sweeteners, because I really believe the type of sugar or sweetener that you are choosing to consume or not choosing to consume is very personal to you, personal to your health goals, to like your medical history, like what the things that you are trying to help out. My point here is just to show you how to spot these sweeteners, and don't just trust the food marketing. Don't just trust that it says 0 sugar and you're like, oh, I'm good. Because maybe in your mind, you're trying to avoid these sweeteners. Maybe you are, I don't know. Maybe you're trying to avoid the artificial sweeteners. Maybe you're cool with monk fruit and allulose, but I know at least you would know exactly what you are putting into your body. Okay, now let's move on to the next example that I have for you guys. So these are Monster Pops. I don't know who else ate Monster Pops when they were, little or younger. I remember my mom had these for us. These are the sugar-free Monster Pops. Not gonna lie, they were pretty good. And these, again, these say these say sugar-free, which is the same as 0 sugar or no sugar. So what I'm talking about today has to do with the claim sugar-free, 0 sugar, or no sugar. So since this is sugar-free, you already know when you look at the label, which is what we see here, under the total sugar and the added sugar, it's always 100% going to be 0, because they cannot make a claim of sugar-free, no sugar, or 0 in sugar and add an ingredient that the FDA considers to be sugar. Okay. Now, since this is sugar-free, and I'm 100% sure if you were to consume it, it's going to taste sweet. Let's see what type of sweetener it actually has. So let me show you guys the ingredient list. Okay, so when you look at this ingredient list, you're gonna find sorbitol, and you're also gonna find aspartame. So sorbitol is actually a sugar alcohol. So sugar alcohols are similar to sugar, but they're chemically different. So the FDA doesn't recognize sugar alcohols as sugar. That is why they can be used in our food products as an ingredient to sweeten our food, but the amount of sugar alcohol is not listed in the nutrition fact panel. Sometimes you will see the sugar alcohol listed, but that's kind of optional for the food manufacturer. It's not an FDA rule that every food manufacturer has to abide by. It's kind of optional. Now, anytime that you see an ingredient that ends in OL, that should be your clue that that is a sugar alcohol. So in this example, we see sorbitol, but think about erythritol, think about xylitol, mannitol. So anything that ends in an OL is going to be a sugar alcohol. You also see aspartame. So aspartame is an artificial sweetener. So remember, artificial sweeteners are going to be listed by their chemical name. Aspartame is a chemical name for equal. So these Monster Pop sugar-free popsicles don't contain any actual sugar made up of sugar molecules per the FDA definition, but they do contain a type of sweetener, sugar alcohol, but in this example, it's sorbitol, and an artificial sweetener in this example is aspartame or equal. Okay, so you guys are kind of getting this, right? Even though it says sugar-free or no sugar, it's still going to have a type of sweetener. Okay, so this is zero sugar ocean spray. Same thing, you look at the label, zero total sugar, zero added sugar. When we look at the ingredient list, you're going to see stevia leaf extract listed. So stevia, you're probably very familiar with stevia. Stevia is also a sweetener that doesn't have any calories, doesn't increase blood sugar, and the FDA does not consider it to be a sugar. So pretty straightforward, right? This one's kind of easy. It's our fourth example. You guys, I feel, might already be catching on and getting how to identify these type of other ingredients in the zero sugar, no sugar, sugar-free food products. Okay, now let me show you guys the Reese's tiny, I don't know, they call them like miniature cups example. So these are also claiming to be zero in sugar. Okay, cool. Zero in sugar. Now let's look at the label. So when we look at the label, we see what we expect to see: zero total sugar, zero added sugar. But right below, you see sugar alcohols 12 grams. Okay, cool. So this gives you an idea, right? Total sugar is zero, added sugar is zero. It has a claim of zero sugar in the packaging, which means that they didn't use an ingredient they considers to be sugar. They used another type of sweetener. By looking at the label, it kind of already is telling us, right? They used a sugar alcohol. Okay, so then let's look at the ingredient list and let's see if you are able to spot the type of sugar or sweetener that they used. So you're going to be looking for a sugar alcohol, right? And remember, sugar alcohols end with OL. So the first ingredient in this ingredient list for the Reese's miniature cups is maltitol. God, those things are like hard to pronounce, but it ends in an OL. So remember, anything that ends in an OL is a sugar alcohol. If we scan through, you're also going to see here at the bottom, it has sucralose. So sucralose is an artificial sweetener. It is the chemical name for Splenda. So these Reese's miniature cup zero sugar chocolates don't have any, let's see, like real sugar added, but they have Splenda, an artificial sweetener, and they have sugar alcohol maltitol added to sweeten up the product. Now, that is how you're able to spot the type of sweeteners, the type of, I guess, other types of sugar that's being added into our foods. Remember, when you see a food product labeled as zero sugar, no sugar, or sugar-free, it doesn't mean that it doesn't have any type of sweetener. It just means it doesn't have real sugar, what the FDA considers to be real sugar, sugar made up with sugar molecules like honey, fructose, coconut sugar, brown sugar, regular table sugar. But it does have a type of sweetener. And that type of sweetener, it's either going to be an artificial sweetener, like Equal Splenda, Sweet and Low, or aspartame, or a sulfame potassium, or it's going to have a sugar alcohol, like xylitol, maltitol, erythritol, or it's going to have something like stevia or monk fruit, or it's going to have something like allulose. But you now know that you'll be able to find these ingredients in the ingredient list. So if you care about what you're putting into your body, I highly recommend that you start to not just believe, the marketing that these food products are, advertising to us, but look at the ingredient list and look at your nutrition fact panel. Alrighty guys, well, I hope this was helpful to you. I will see you on the next one.